that to take attendance? Okay. Thank you, community staff, for coming this evening to our meeting. Will you please take attendance?
I shall, as I get my voice back. Thank you. President D'Alessandro.
Here.
Vice President Griffith. He is excused. Secretary Hanser, present. Treasurer Schaefer.
Here.
Trustee Foster. Absent. Trustee Schultz.
Here.
Trustee Reese.
Here.
Thank you. And just as a note, I did receive contact from Eric and Chad that they weren't going to be able to make it. Eric deals with some folks in China with his work, and that happened to be this evening. So we're on a completely other side of the globe, so they're on a different time zone. Not loud enough? Better? Good? Thank you. And then Chad is, he's moving his daughter. He's out of town for either work or a family function. So want to let that be known. Okay. Any changes to the board agenda? I do have a couple things that I want to cover under other, but we will get to that in a few.
None tonight.
None tonight? That would be, let's have item number 3, the consent agenda. There is a motion for the minutes of October 11th and minutes of our regular meeting, then the minutes of October 11th for our special meeting. Do I have anybody make that motion? Ms. Schultz?
Move to approve.
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Do I have support? Support, Ms. Reese. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And Colleen, Aaron, being new, these are really for projection out to the audience. And then there is another microphone if you speak. That one helps pick it up on OCTV. So just to kind of clarify that.
So we just push this little button.
When it's green,
Yep.
they can hear you.
Great, thanks. I'm sure they can hear me without it.
Well, that's what Tom, your husband, says. They definitely hear you. Item number 4, prearranged request to address the board. That would be the IB senior 2020, or I'm sorry, IB diploma seniors class of 2023 field trip request. Mrs. Barnett.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I just wanted to introduce, we actually have a lot of IB students here tonight. Sam and Lizzie are going to present, and hopefully, I'll thank you. Do you want, you guys want the microphone? Yeah.
Should go ahead and give them, I'm assuming they're live streaming, so that's the best way to pick it up. Mic check. All right.
They do have an orchestra event right after this, so this is just preparation, right?
Yeah.
Your voice. Yeah. Okay, hi, I'm Lizzie McQueen.
And I'm Samantha Kirchler.
We're here today to talk about our IB CAS project, also known as Oxford Legacy. We started this project after the mass shooting at Uvalde in Texas. And just months after our own tragedy, this really touched many people in our community, if not all. We started this organization to spread the love that we received shortly after our tragedy ourselves. And being so close to this issue, we thought we needed to do something. So our IB cohort is made up of 18 people, and some of them are here with us today.
We have been working over the summer.
Do you want me to use my? Well, because then they can hear it. Okay. The TV can hear it.
We actually have been working over the summer. We started after we heard about the tragedy in Uvalde. It really hit hard to us, and it kind of definitely gave us like a kind of I don't know, an inspiration that we felt like we needed to do something in order to spread that love that we originally got from our own tragedy that we had here. And we thought of a way to send kind of like bags or gifts to them in hopes to spread our love so they knew that they had someone to stand with them. And we actually contacted certain brands over Instagram and other like social media, and we got donations of fleece from Joann's, and we worked over the summer to make hand-tied blankets. So we were tying blankets all summer. We actually made 1,200 that were in hopes to bring down to Uvalde, and we also got in contact with Little Caesars, and they have a Little Caesars down in Uvalde. And they offered to give us transportation of our goods, of the blankets and everything else we want to bring down there. And they said they would bring it down there to their location. And we are very thankful for them.
Yeah, so my mother had a contact with someone in Little Caesars, and we have been able to organize transportation of all of our boxes that are currently stored in the PAC of Oxford High School. And the event that is hosted is on November 19th by one of our previous graduates at Oxford High School, Zoe Teray. She started this event called Survivors United Play Day. And we as an IB cohort, we faced a lot of challenges trying to organize our own event. And when we heard news about this event, we thought it'd be a great way to kind of piggyback onto it, to have our blankets go down there and without all the hassles, because we have faced many troubles trying to get in contact down there. So the event is on Saturday, the November 19th at the Civic Center in Uvalde, Texas. And it will have many different things, including therapy dogs, games, vendors, not to mention Little Caesars food and Wingstop. So there are many different details that still need to be ironed out, but we are hoping to make progress soon on that.
Again, we accomplished many things. Another big help was we actually contacted the Detroit Lions, and we even got to meet with 2 of their representatives. And we met with them. We actually made them a blanket. As you can see in the photo, we made them a tie blanket with Joann fabrics. And it's actually hanging in their locker room on their Allen Park campus. And all the players actually, we found out, fought for it at first, where they wanted to take turns and every week a new player would have it. And they ended up donating, the actual head of the Lions donated $3,000. And there were 3 players that also donated $1,000 each. And in that, they asked the NFL organization to match their donation, and they gave us an extra $3,000 in order to help bring a therapy dog, which is $10,000, down to Uvalde with us, because we thought as students here, therapy dogs were a huge help in our recovery process and definitely made it way easier. We also contacted American Airlines, and we had a meeting with one of their representatives, and they ended up giving us travel miles for 24 round-trip tickets to go down to Uvalde, and we are very thankful for them, and it was definitely a fun process. And we also contacted Zoe about her event, so we were hoping to piggyback off hers, like Lizzie said, and finalize plans and hoping to join her and help her as she could need as much help as possible.
So currently we have transportation for all of our goods down there, and we have an event. The only thing left is figuring out how we, as a IB cohort, can get down there. So the tentative travel plans are leaving Thursday night from DTW and arriving in San Antonio, where we will stay the night. On Friday, it will be either a coordination day with the Little Caesars trucks, shipping them down, which is the day they are supposed to ship it down, November 18th. And then Saturday is the event where we will spend all day in Uvalde, Texas, and go back to San Antonio later that day. And Sunday, we will return back home. The only day we are missing of school is Friday for this plan. We have, the money we raise will go towards the event, Zoe's foundation, and other expenses along the way, but cannot be used for our personal travel, which is an issue we were hoping to deal with today. We actually, Miss Barnett helped us come up with a plan of costs and logistics. And it seems that each chaperone and student will be responsible for their own costs for a hotel, ground transportation, like cars, traveling back and forth, activities, and food. And the estimate is about $500 per student. We are hoping that we can start a GoFundMe and raise money so that we don't have as much of an expense. That way, hopefully everyone in our cohort will be able to attend with us. We've been contacting media outlets to try and document our trip, and we have Sandra Ali, who wanted to come down there with us and document as we go and make a whole news story about it. And Zoe also has news broadcasting down in Uvalde, where they wanted to interview us and take pictures, so we were going to be with media there. And chaperones will be renting and driving vans and SUVs in Uvalde, Texas. Some may question, like, this project, we could just send our blankets down with Little Caesars and have Zoe hand these blankets out herself and with the volunteers that she has gained from outside sources. But with the IB cohort, we believe that we need to be down there. We believe that we need to see these children. And the beginning of this project was we wanted to go down there and we wanted to hug these children and we wanted to give them love and compassion that we were given. And the only way we see that happening is going down there with them, with our blankets, to hand these out. And that is an issue we've been trying to iron out. But we started this with the idea of the 4 people we lost, and we need to go down there to finish this mission. So with that, any questions?
Any questions? Heather?
How many of you guys are going to go?
There are 18 people in the IB cohort, depending on who wants to go down.
Okay.
And then there are 6 or 7 chaperones, including our parents and some of the teachers at Oxford High School.
Okay, very good. Anybody else? Mary?
Thank you. I just wanted to get the details straight. So American is paying for your travel through donated travel miles, is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's covered.
Yes,
That's
it
awesome.
is.
So where you're at now is trying to bring down this $500.
And that's a
per
rough
person.
estimate.
Right.
I like to kind of estimate on the high end, so we can expect, just be excited if it's less. So that was, we're going to be staying in San Antonio the whole time, staying the night there. We're just going to travel to Uvalde Saturday and then travel back. So that would entail the hotel costs in San Antonio, and there's a lot of activities to do in San Antonio there. We figured we could go to the Alamo maybe on that Friday, and it's also walking distance to a lot of different restaurants, so we figured that could save on travel. So that high-end estimate was on the hotel stay, the ground transportation to and from the airport, as well as traveling to Uvalde. The food was an estimate as well. Is that making a weird noise? Oh, okay. And I feel like I'm missing something. I think that was about it.
I thought I saw on there, food, any extra spending money.
Right.
And then I also saw on there accommodations. So I
Yes,
think we
okay,
covered it.
yep. Mhm.
And so all the donations that were taken in, those go to the materials?
Right, so the
program?
donations that we set up an internal account with the school, and all of those donations are only for the Uvalde Foundation, the Oxford Legacy. So that we're only using those for
the items and kind of like serving that community. So we didn't want to entail or really use those funds for us to travel.
Well, I think that's fantastic. And, maybe it's an opportunity for a foundation or people to donate, hotel nights, people.
We could be hoping for this as well.
Yeah, so, just in case anybody would want to make a donation to help these IB students, you've done a
We would
great job,
accept.
making these connections already. And I think it's great that you found somebody to connect with who's already doing something. It's hard to go someplace else and just put something
Right.
together, it's always easier if you don't have to reinvent the wheel and people are already connected. So great work and research and getting out there and making those connections. Great job.
Right. And Zoe was a very integral part. I don't know if you've been following her. She's quite the celebrity these days. So Zoe does work for March for Your Lives now, and she's been going around the country advocating for gun violence. So she has made connections with a lot of families in Uvalde already. So it just seemed like a natural fit for us to kind of help her out and make that a bigger event.
Colleen?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for all the hard work. This is really, really impressive that not only did you spend your whole summer raising money, tying blankets, now that you want to take some time and go down there and really present, see those kids and make some connections and let them know, as older kids, that you too know what they're feeling. So it's really, really impressive. Thank you. You're welcome. Thanks for doing this.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I spent a great amount of time over the weekend following your Instagram page. You did a great job, and wow, you guys spent a lot of time doing those blankets. I've done those one Christmas, and wow, they take a long time. For like 5 people, yeah. 1,200 is impressive, and it's
Yeah, actually, my mom built a massive cutting table in our barn, and it became more of an assembly line the longer we spent on it. 2 weeks or 2 days every week all summer, we got pretty good at it. I mean, we could make 3 blankets under 5 minutes. Cutting it. But yeah, so it's been a process, but we're ready to see this through the end.
And we've also had groups in the school help out a lot, really over the past few weeks. So our leadership group has been taking bags and tying. I am third. So there's been lots of other little hands working for us too. So awesome.
Very good. Go ahead.
Now you're looking for about another $10,000.
I mean, we would gladly accept any monetary donations, but we really want to go down there.
Okay.
And if that means we have to do some of it on our own, we're going to just hope
Okay.
that we can do it.
All right.
So I have a question. Have we determined what hotel chain we would be staying at?
We've just been looking at a couple of, me and Mr. Trotter. Mr. Trotter is going, and him and Miss Blazik as well. And they do the travel club at the high school. So we've been kind of working together, and as we've kind of figured out some different ground transportation rules, because at first, we wanted to be close so we could walk. We might, have our own vehicles now so we could drive further. So we really don't have, we have like a rough idea of like a couple hotels, but it also kind of depends on.
If you could let Ken know
Okay.
what those might be.
Okay.
There are some things that are going on in here.
Oh,
but
okay.
That happens a lot. So,
Yeah. Same.
Just a few things. So, but I do want to say that, I remember when I was younger, the people that you looked up to were high schoolers. When you were in that age group, oh boy, high schoolers are really, boy, I want to be like a high schooler. So by sharing that with them, that'll expand the giving and the thought that they will have when they're your age. And so hopefully it just keeps on growing and growing. So I'm very excited, and I'm very proud of the fact that you're taking something as tragic as what this community experienced and turning it into a positive. That's what we should all strive for. So excellent job.
Thank you.
And you have a concert, correct? So we will be voting on this correct later on, so hopefully they will let you know how it goes.
Thank you.
They're learning what the future life is going to be.
Right.
I love it. All right, next up on the list, Stephanie, Clear Lake presentation. For those of you who do not know, with the changes that we've had in our admin staff, Stephanie Nemi is our principal now at Clear Lake. And they were never so happy to have Mr. Bigelow move on out of here.
I don't know about that.
I'm kidding. They were just heartbroken when you left, Brad.
All right. Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It's amazing to have so many people in the building for this. We were kind of thinking back the last time that we actually got to host. I did actually help Mr. Bigelow at that one. I remember because it was the same time of year and we had lots of pumpkins involved in that presentation. So welcome again tonight. Again, it's so good to have so many people here. Okay, for those of you who are maybe not as familiar with us as a building, we are a developmental kindergarten through 5th grade school. We have approximately 425 students this year. And so it's been super amazing to come in and get to be in all these classrooms and be with 425 students every day. And just to get to know them all the way from that DK, those real little guys and girls out there, all the way up to 5th grade this year so far. So like the other elementary schools, we do have some goals that we are also working on as a building that also then feeds into our district goals and also our 3-year recovery plan. And so the way we have it structured, so I have to share with you that prior to becoming the principal here at Clear Lake, that I also wore this other hat of being the IB coordinator here. So really, when putting together things to present to the community, I bring that lens. And so since the last time you've seen us, the primary years program has gone through an enhancement in which they've reorganized the structure in which we approach the learning and teaching. They actually organize it into focusing on the learner, the learning community, and also our learning and teaching. And so through that framework is really how we then organize ourselves and our curriculum, our district resources, to then be able to provide those learning opportunities for our students here. So I've organized our goals under those 3 pillars, and you can see under the learner, you heard Paul talk about it when you were out at Leonard, about that win, what I need time. That is something that we started last year, recognizing the needs within our students. We have very diverse needs, both academic, social, emotional, and behavior. So that what I need time is a 30-minute block of time built into our master schedule where we can provide intervention for those areas without interrupting that core content. So that's something that we started last year as a building and as a district elementary team. It's something that we're continuing this year to use our data to then drive those intervention groups and make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our learners. Also under our learner is also, we at Clear Lake have also been working really hard with Mrs. Butts, our career focused education director, to also bring that career focused education lens. Again, there's certain requirements I had written down that, you know, the Michigan Department of Ed actually mandates a plan for K-12 career readiness. And so the way we have taken that approach working with Mrs. Butts is to be able to organize that learning experiences and exposure to the different career pathways through our units of inquiry. And in a little bit when we get to our points of pride, I'll kind of talk about some of those things that we have done. But that's something here at Clear Lake that we also have been striving to really try to bring to all of our students from DK5. Within our learning community, I'm also going to show some pictures in a little bit because there's been a lot of things happening in our building since you've last been here. We do have positive behavior interventions and supports, or PBIS. Board, you should have a yellow Clear Lake Cares bracelet. Part of our PBIS system is that we've recognized through the learner profile of IB that we really are striving to be caring, thinkers, and principled as our 3 learner profile expectations throughout the building that then supports that positive culture and climate. And so every month, teachers nominate students. They nominate 1 student for being caring, 1 for being a thinker, and 1 for being principled within their classroom. So 3 students per class every month are recognized for those 3 learner profiles. They're announced on the morning announcements, and then those students receive either a yellow caring bracelet, or we have a light blue thinker or a dark blue principal bracelet. So the kids love getting those bracelets and like collecting them because they know that they'll also have that opportunity later in the year to hopefully be recognized for another learner profile. We also are the last elementary building to go through our IB self-study reauthorization visit. That visit is going to be a virtual visit in November. It will be the 7th through the 9th. This is a visit where, as an IB community, we really celebrate our journey of where we have come in the last 5 years since the last IB visit. And so we're looking forward to this virtual visit and trying it because the last time it was in person. So the virtual side of it will be new to us, but I can assure the community that it's going to be a great visit and we're looking forward to it. And under our learning and teaching goal, we're also strengthening our social emotional learning. We have built into our master schedule, again, a specific 30-minute time block for every class once per week, where our family school liaison comes in. She's providing additional lessons to support the classrooms. She has also been a great resource to come in and also like do some restorative practice as we've had some like maybe playground things come up. She comes in during that SEL time in the classrooms to help restore that community back. All right, so I know it's only October, but we do have some points of pride. So like I said, this is, I'm kind of also going back to last year, where we were able to recognize all students at least once last year through our PBIS system, where they had their picture taken, they're getting those bracelets. So we look forward to really kind of continuing to develop our PBIS system, but we at least were off the ground last year and then moving forward this year. So that's kind of the compilation of all of our kids who were recognized last year. I also mentioned that career focused education. We also last year started some things as we were allowed to have people back into the building. So we actually had, for our 5th grade students, we had a career mentorship and career exploration morning where we invited parents and community members to come in, share their careers. And then we also in the 5th grade have IB exhibition. So on that same morning, we asked if those same people would be interested in coming back for exhibition to also support our learners during that time to act as either a primary source or a partner in order to take action for their IB project. We have also really intentionally placed career-ready activities and extra extensions outside of the classroom. So we really try to take learning on location. So it's kind of hard to see, but we have gone out into the community. We align this within our grade level standards and our IB units. So these are just some of the pictures of our students out in the community and exploring different career zones. We have a visit to OCTV. We've recently just gone to Lansing. Our 4th graders actually got to go to iFly in Novi, where they actually got to meet the 2 youngest skydiving champions who were in town to train. So we're also thinking kind of outside the box of like what other careers are there. We have also our fire department locally that our kids are able to go to, so even like our DK kids are able to go out into the community. And then we also have our Oakland Schools STEMI that actually comes to the middle school, where all the buildings are able to participate, where then students are exposed to different STEM-related careers and different things that the Oakland Schools team brings to us. We also already have gone to 5th grade camp and brought back our overnight component. It was an amazing couple of days. We had great weather. We had a great turnout. I think almost all students in 5th grade went. And so we are really excited to continue that overnight component and have that back after not having it for COVID reasons. Yeah. It is. It was so great. I just wanted to highlight the Clear Lake Learning Community because since you've been in, we have tried to do some different things within the building. So last year we had a student art club where they collaborated with me and our art teacher to look around the building and think, where can we maybe infuse some more artwork, use our creativity to really kind of freshen up the building. So in this back hallway right back here, they actually drew all of these murals of people where then it coordinates with a learner profile trait. In the front hallway here, when you come in, we have this other mural. The quote there says, "In a world where you can be anything, be caring," because caring is a learner profile. And then very exciting, also in our back playground area, we have broke ground for a new learning pavilion. I think since I've last taken that picture, there is cement and some other things going. I've been told maybe a crane is coming this week, so very exciting. So next year we would also have this as a space to be able to have students go out, utilize the outdoors to be able to then do learning out there.
Where's that going to be?
It's going to be right out here
That little,
by the basketball courts.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
okay.
all right. That's what I have. Thank you. Any questions or?
Any questions? Colleen, Aaron, Mary?
I have a comment.
All right, go ahead.
Wow, thank you. Stephanie, congratulations. I haven't had an opportunity to say congratulations on. This is fantastic. It's so, it's really exciting. It's great to see the students getting involved in different things and getting out of the buildings, and as well as spending that time getting ready to learn. That's how I see that, that win time and that SEL time. I was talking with a community member about it and how important that is to prepare the students and I think sometimes the teachers to be ready to learn and to teach. So, love what you're doing with the place. Thank you.
Heather? Andrea, you are filling Brad's big shoes very well, and I'm not just saying that.
Stephanie.
I'm sorry, I had a schoolmate named Andrea Nemi. So any relation? No. Stephanie, thank you for, see, I have these people here to correct me because I need it. He's not just, he was a tremendous asset for this building, and you were doing a great job of filling his big shoes, and
You say big shoes and a tall desk.
yes, yes, it's probably one of those standing desks without it even being.
Right.
But, that was important that we had a strong person and shows all the same attributes that Mr. Bigelow had. And you are doing a phenomenal job with this and every day. So, I'm excited to hear about what the next points of prides are. So, thank you. Anybody else have a question? Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Check out that name.
Can I give you a couple things?
Yes, ma'am.
You do the motion for the field trip.
Okay. Item number 5, Board of Education matters. We have Graduation Alliance. Mr. Weaver.
Yeah, so we have 3 graduates that we're going to announce. I don't think any of them are in attendance, but if they are, most certainly they can come up and we would congratulate them. Elena Hubbard, Anna McKinley, and Anthony Coswell. We just want to congratulate them for their hard work and perseverance and have hung in with Graduation Alliance.
Right here? No? We also had another diploma. Do you have that diploma?
Oh, I already gave
Okay,
it back to
and-
Angela.
And that was from the diploma that we signed and was going to give to the student. Correct. And he's finished, and we're just giving him his diploma, correct? Okay, and so they should expect their diplomas within a certain period of time.
These students tonight that you guys recognize have already received their diplomas too.
Okay,
It just didn't get them on the agenda yet.
okay, very good, thank you, I just wanted to be sure. All right, moving on to item B, the 21-22 final audit presentation. Jacob Subchinsky, did I get that right? Well, the only reason I got that one right was because I've been here around long, we think we've been doing this with is now the 5th or 6th time that you presented, so. All right, good.
Well, you gave us such fun reading materials.
Yes, thank you. Don't know, I'm not technology enough to make this work.
As long as the numbers work.
We just want to get it to full screen.
Yeah. It's must be a PDF.
Okay, there you go.
Is this the?
Yes, clicker right, Stephanie, he just clicks it.
We should have done a prep.
Stephanie, he just used that clicker.
This one? That's valuable. Stephanie, how did you scroll?
Sam?
Here's my extra right here. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're going to use that microphone so they can hear, and we should be good.
How about that? Better? Nope. How about that? All right, Stephanie, what did you do? How about that? Oh, perfect. Here we go. Well, thank you very much. And Stephanie, for your young students who are looking for jobs in the future, bring them on to accounting. We've got plenty of openings and looking for some few great people. So feel free to let me know if you'd like to bring some by the office. When we talk about the audit, again, this is what it comes to. This one paragraph in the financial statement that says the financial statements as they're presented, that's that big thick book board members have. That financial statement as it's presented is free from material misstatement. So we call that a clean opinion. Congratulations to Oxford and the finance department and everyone else. I'm gonna just give a little applaud. That's it, that's the audit. To get there takes a whole lot more work. When we go to the next slide, we talk about all the things we do in that audit process. We wanna understand what internal controls you have. We wanna make sure those are operating effectively and efficiently, that you've got procedures in place to safeguard the theft of assets. We also test disbursements and state reporting and state requirements and federal reporting and federal requirements, MDE requirements, all this stuff we end up testing. And after all that testing, we issue that opinion and we identify material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, and management comments. Those are the hierarchy. No management comments, congratulations. No material weaknesses, congratulations. No significant deficiencies, congratulations. We did have 2 comments we made this year. One is the timeliness of bank reconciliations. Just a few months behind, we want to make sure Finance Department keeps ahead of those and make sure that those are looked at regularly. And then the other one is utilizing the budgets, both within the system and for reporting purposes on monthly basis, making sure they're getting uploaded into the system and amended regularly. Other than that, awesome, clean audit, so congratulations. We'll touch briefly on some of the numbers. From a balance sheet perspective, that first column is your general fund. That's general operations of the district. The second column is everything else. That's sinking fund, capital projects, bond funds, as well as food service, student activities, everything else. But what we're really focused on here is the general fund. Cash is always going to be a major asset, we hope, and we were at just about $9 million of cash as of June 30. And then due from other governmental units, that's our July and August state aid, as well as any requests for federal reimbursement grants. So those are both typical things we'd like to see on a balance sheet. The other side of that are liabilities. Those are amounts we owe. Most substantially are those bottom 3, the middle 3 due to other governments, payroll, and accrued salaries. Again, we have revenue coming in for July and August on state aid, and we have contracts that are due through July and August. That's the liability for that. At the end of the day, there was about $14.2 million of fund balance. But some of that fund balance, Sam, on the next slide, talks about that it's owed for certain things or set aside for certain things. 1.5 million is non-spendable fund balance of that. That's for prepaids and inventory and other things that we can't spend. And then we've got some assigned funds. Those are for education, our education solutions, athletics, and for future healthcare costs. At the end of the day, the remaining fund balance is assigned for long-term obligations because of our debt we carry. We assign that as well. We measure fund balance, the health of the district, as one metric. So we look at the very top of that in the green section. We talk about fund balance as a percent of unrestricted revenues, and that amounted to about 16.6% this year, up from last year at 15.6%. We also measure as a percent of expenses. Just another metric, just to gauge health. We went from 14.8 to 15.95. Yeah, that's a really loaded question, so I appreciate it. There's a lot of different metrics to do that. My rule of thumb is always what cash, because this is ultimately the cash we have in the bank when you think about what fund balance is. This is our ability to weather the storm if we have a shortfall in our state aid. This also allows us to not have to borrow state aid because we don't get state aid payments for during a period of time. So we don't have to borrow against that. That costs interest, that causes additional cost to the district. So that number generally falls in the line of about 15 to 20%. So that's generally the range we like to see. Again, 25%, depending on your unique circumstances, 20% and higher is certainly acceptable. Yes, yep, in a good position. We talk about revenue and expenditures on the next slide. Total revenues in the general fund, just over 92 million. Of that, we spent about 90 million of that. That left about $2.8 million increase in fund balance. There's that building of fund balance this year. Again, ESSER dollars this year. We had a lot of ESSER dollars pumped into schools. Great, that was very healthy for the schools. Let us get some costs covered related to COVID. And we've been able to capture 2.8 million to the bottom line. Again, fund balance went from 11 to almost just over 14 million. We talked briefly earlier about those budgeting and our comment for budgeting. Our revenues were off about 5% from our budget. They were over. There were some things that happened after year end. Some 11W funds were received, as well as some additional fees for the lighthouse that we didn't anticipate, and 147C funding, I think, were the leading causes for that overage. Again, expenditures were pretty darn close. We call that about 2% off. Net change in fund balance, we projected 81,000 loss. We ended up at 2.8 million. So we ended up to the better of our budget. Just like to talk briefly on where we get our revenues from. Again, we've had an influx of some federal sources this year. That's at 5%, 4.7 million. But Proposal A still is our major funding source, our state and local revenues. A majority of that state revenue comes from that Proposal A, number of FTEs times our allocation. So that's why we always want to advocate to the state for a higher allocation. That gives us 87% of our funding. How we spend those, 94% of our dollars go out to supporting services and instruction. That's educating students, that's providing the school structure that we have. When I take supporting services and instruction, 94%. So that's what we want to see. That's what we look to see, that we're spending money in the district for the growth of our students. Historical trend, the blue line represents revenues, the green line expenditures. Again, we've seen that influx of revenues this year substantially from the ESSER dollars and some other state funding sources, and expenses have risen to cost to match those revenues proportionately. We talked about that Proposal A. Again, this is one of those metrics. This is that enrollment trend. These are FTEs, not necessarily students in seats. This is how the state sees you. So we went up to 7130 last year, and so there was a nice peak on that. We want to have those students. That gives us 90% of our funding. And again, the other half of that is that foundation allowance. The state was very generous last year, bumping that from almost just over $8,100 to $8,700. And we had a small bump again for the current year that we're in operating. So we see the state continue to provide additional funding for schools. One of those biggest costs is the MIPSERS program. We've talked about this before at this board. The MIPSERS program covers both health care and pension for our educators and our teachers. But 43 cents on every dollar of payroll goes to pay for that MIPSERS program. So it's a very expensive program to have. And then finally, just some things to think about as we move forward in the future. Again, the state of Michigan, we talked about, we got a nice bump in state aid last year. We got a bump this year. We don't know what next year is going to bring. We don't know what enrollment's going to bring 2 years down the road. So planning that state and economical condition where we're at and looking for that and doing some planning to make sure that we can weather a drop in enrollment or drop in funding should it happen. We talked about fringe benefit costs and just want to make sure that the state funding enrollment trends. Some new accounting pronouncements I won't bother with you. If you're really interested, they're in the big thick book. But our accounting industry loves to change rules regularly. And so as new rules roll out, we make sure we work with the finance department to make sure that we're compliant with those. State of Michigan, obviously, there's a talent shortage in every industry. Teachers and educators are an extreme part of that. So whatever we can do to retain and recruit highly educated educators is very important. And then just making sure we're staying compliant with all of the federal compliance with ESSER and everything else. Again, our audit covers a federal program testing. We tested both ESSER and the nutrition cluster this year. Both of those were free from material misstatement, no identified issues, and no question costs. So super clean audit. Congratulations to Sam and more so to Connie, because we know where the work gets done. And actually, it's a couple more people in the back too that contribute to that. So awesome audit this year. We really appreciate all the hard work they've done because it was a rough year for finance. It's a quick overview.
Question, Kelly, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question. I don't know if, Jacob, you can answer it, or maybe Sam. If our foundation allowance is $8,700 per student, where does that put us in Oakland County?
So actually, that was $8,700 for last year.
Oh, okay.
Currently, it is $9,150 per pupil, and that is the lowest state aid foundation allowance that you could have. Okay, $9,150 in the state.
That's the lowest that you can have in the county?
That's
in the
correct.
state?
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Great question.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Sure.
Thank you, Dan.
You're welcome.
So, just to reiterate, on the funding, we are at the mercy of the state. On a year-by-year basis, and there have been years, and even in the last 4, that we have started the school year before we even knew what our foundation allowance was going to be.
Just about every year you start a school. Sorry, I'm standing behind you and that scared you. Every year you set your budget back in May. Start working on it in May. Board approves it sometime May, June. We don't know FTE, and I don't know when the last time we knew what that allocation amount was. So we come out of the gate not knowing where we're going to be from a revenue source and try to expense that. That's why that fund balance is important, so that in a year when maybe something happens at the state level or enrollment drops, that we have enough cushion, that we don't have to hit teachers, we don't have to hit union, we don't have to hit all those other expenses, and we can say, you know what, it's okay to take a loss in a year, an operating loss, because we've got enough fund balance to weather that storm. That's why it's important to have that safety net.
I think it looks like we're going up to 9,100 they're talking about for next year. The School Finance Research Collaborative has updated their reporting also, now raising it to over $10,000 per student is the actual cost to educate a student. And we continue, as school districts to operate below.
That's right. And you do get some supplemental funding for federal programs, but Title I is a very small allocation in this district, so you're not getting those extra dollars. And special ed funding was decreased again this year statewide. I mean, those are just some hits to the education system. And some categoricals and some other costs and food service and things like that, but it's minimal when compared with that state aid.
So congratulations to our business team for,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the whole
absolutely.
team for continuing to make it work and work well for all of our students. Great job, Sam.
Thank you. And I want to just give kudos to Connie Haugen. Connie is the controller of the school district, and I just want to say thank you so much. It's a pleasure working with you, your hard work, as well as the entire finance staff, Courtney Mikowski. You guys are just, and everyone else in our finance department. You do an exceptional job, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
I want to, just a quick question. Where did we end up as a fund balance this year? Was it the 8 million?
No, actually, it's, if you go back a little bit, it's 14.27, I believe it was. Go back here really quick and see if I can bring that up for
So
you.
we ended up with a fund balance of $14 million.
274. Go up two more.
And I know we were shooting at a target that was not in place and then maybe moved a little bit. My only concern with having a fund balance that's so high is we take that number and we say, oh, this is what we should hit every year. I think we need to take our money that we have and reinvest it in the classroom as quickly as we can, because obviously, and in other resources, not just the classroom, anywhere that it's going to help a student for a number of different issues that come up in a student's day in the life of a student. We should be happy that we have 14 million, but we shouldn't say, let's take all that and slot it over. We need to realize that a lot of that was federal dollars. We have to spend it how the federal guidelines require us to. I just want to make that note so that Ken knows that while we're happy we have 14 million, I don't think it's all just boom going over to the rainy day fund.
Yeah, and this year there has been, although they were talking about the FDE per student, there's also been a lot of other additional funds, like 31A has gone up quite a bit, which is at-risk funding. 31AA is a new source of funds, which is for mental health and school nurses and stuff like that. And there's numerous other security enhancement grants and other sources of funding as well, too. So actually this year, you're seeing a bunch of money from the state level being infused into the schools, and quite honestly, with a lot of those comes stipulations that they can be only spent certain ways in that, and so it's hard. You end up starting to trip over yourself a little bit because many of it's going to the same purpose, and so it becomes hard to spend all the funds in that regard. So we have increased staffing dramatically all across the district, and we'll continue to look at. We actually made a decision today to add another school psychologist today. The problem is also as well, finding qualified individuals is the other end of the side of the coin as well too. So we are looking at, we've got a lot of different things in place. A lot of this is like with ESSER funds and offsetting some things as well too. But also I will say this, our seated enrollment is dropping. It's been dropping for a number of years. It's been dropping for over 6 years. You just haven't really noticed it because of OVA and the amount of online participants that we have. And these are a lot of times through the hybrid locations and so forth, that they're not necessarily like Oxford kids moving over to virtual. It's other opportunities that we have been able to create and manage as well too. But what you're seeing is, though, the seated enrollment started dropping in about 2014, 15, and it's just birth rates. It's kind of like we caught up to the rest of Oakland County. The rest of Oakland County dropped during the period from 2005 to about 2012, 13, while Oxford was still experiencing growth in its seated enrollment, which was somewhat different, as well as the online. But now what you're seeing is Oxford catching up to the rest, or coming down to the rest, I guess, so to speak. And our enrollment is dropping about 60 kids. And as that grade moves up through, it's now up to the high school level, where the ninth grade class is about 60 kids smaller than what the outgoing class was. And you're going to see that over the next 3 years. You know, for example, 3 years ago, the middle school was at, or 4 years ago roughly, about 1180. It is now down to 980 at the middle school. And like I said, that trend has been going on for some time, and we could see it coming. Elementaries did the same, experienced the same thing, obviously, over the previous 5 years. We could see we were at one time 15 sections per grade level. We're down to about 13 sections per grade level now. So, some less. What?
And more staff.
Yes, and way more staff, yes.
Very good.
Yes.
And one last thing, as my job, sometimes I come into the parking lot late, and I had to call Sam one day because I thought he was just being that slave driver, that he was just beating the heck out of poor Connie over there. It was 12:45 at night, and Connie's walking out of the district office on a Friday. So I asked Sam, I said, are you working her too hard, or she had some stuff in her box, or did you just work her too hard and she left? She said, no, that's Connie doing what needs to be done to get this done the right way. So thank you, Connie, and you know, to your entire staff. It's great to work with them. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It benefits our students, so don't think it's just benefiting him and looking good and, you know. Thank you, Connie. And thank you, Jacob. Always good to see you, especially when it's good news. Okay, we have item C, recommendation for the aforementioned presented field trip. Heather, please.
I will gladly read that.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Thanks, that's all right, Dan gave, Dan.
Yeah, because there's a name change. There was a date
Go
change,
ahead
so
and read
can
it,
we have?
Mary.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I would like to make the motion.
Thank you, Mary.
Move to approve the IBDP senior class of 2023 field trip request to attend an event in Uvalde, Texas, November 17 to November 20, 2022.
Support?
Support it, yep.
Support Heather. Any discussion? Colleen?
I would just like to know, when they get their hotel situation settled, can they let us know?
I will, yep, I would like Ken to let us know, because I do have some points that I would, if that hotel chain, I would donate as much as I can according to their guidelines.
Good idea.
So sometimes it's not just money, it's, you know, through traveling, through business, I would be more than happy to donate some of those, and I'm sure other people would do what they can, and as we all know, that this Oxford community is one of the best. And so I'm not concerned with signing this that over $10,000. It's a lot of money, but it's a great, great cause. Anybody else discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Let me just do this real quick. 10, 20, what's today's date?
The 25th. 25th. There you go.
Ready to go. If you could let them know, I'm sure she's already sending a message out. It's the power of technology there.
The kids really are.
When we were doing this, you had to pick up the telephone and call somebody and let them know.
It was still attached to the wall?
Exactly. And you had a cord.
And that was the
Okay, there is a recommendation for action that we have. Mary Hanser's reimbursement request. So I will just tell you that I received, Mary just went to the MASB Leadership Conference, which was October 19th through the 23rd. And just a vast amount of knowledge, and I will say that Mary has not only enjoys doing this, but she does a great job of letting us know what's happening at the state level, She digs in, and it's very valuable to our fellow board members. So her education on these things, and not only that, but the connections that you make and the people that you talk to is a tremendous value to us. So with that, there is a recommendation for action. Do I have a motion? Heather?
Sure, okay. Move to approve the reimbursement request for Mary Hanser for the meal and lodging expenses incurred when she attended the 2022 MASB Annual Leadership Conference, October 19th to the 23rd, 2022, in the total amount of $1,169.71.
Do I support? Support Aaron. Any discussion?
I would just like to add that I'll have a full report. I did just get back late on Sunday night, so I will have a full report at the next meeting, but it was another amazing conference full of information and connections, just like you said. Thank you, Dan.
Yes.
And I strongly encourage board members to attend these MASB events, the OCSBA events, the folks who are running for the school board offices. There are events coming up in places you can connect now to learn more about school board membership.
And I will say, while if you first blush the number of $1,100, but Mary had receipts. I think you went grocery shopping for food, so she did it as frugal as possible, and I do appreciate that. Okay.
Can I make a comment, Dan?
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to comment to anybody who, in the audience, who is considering running or is on the ballot. You cannot get a better education on what sitting at the board table is about until you attend those classes. They are outstanding, and I would encourage the new board to do them as a group. I would encourage one or two of you to go with Ken for the board president workshop. You know, there's so much to learn. They used to say that you didn't really know what it was like to sit on a board until you served a full 4 years. I don't know about that, but it took me a long time, so, but I'm kind of slow. So, but I think, Mary, all your hard work is really paying off, and you're doing a great job.
Yep. Anything else? All right. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, Mary. Okay, item number 6, curriculum and instruction. Anita and Mr. Wolf.
All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to hold this a little bit lower. So I feel like this might be the 3rd year in a row for this presentation. It's been revised a little bit, but it is known as the benchmark assessment presentation. During the thick of COVID, we were charged with really closely monitoring students' performance throughout the year and using benchmark screener assessments multiple times a year to check in on students, essentially taking their temperature and essentially using further diagnostics to check in on how we might intervene and help support them during the learning. This public act was formed to help really look at and reduce learning loss as a result of the pandemic. So prior to this school year, this had a different number as the public act because it was tied to the revised school code, which was tied to our funding. So we had to do certain criteria in order to also get funded. This year, it's changed in its section and public act. It is not necessarily tied to funding, but it continues to ask us to monitor learning loss as a result of the pandemic. Luckily for us, and I've shared this before, we have a very strong multi-tiered system of support. This is not in any way challenging for us. This is something we already did, and we're just sharing it essentially publicly with you. So under the Public Act 144, a district must set educational goals, which I'll share with you today, using benchmark assessments. And for us, it's the FAST A reading and A math screener. In the seated, NWEA in virtual, as well as they're using local assessments, Fontes and Pinnell for reading, and Delta Math Screener in virtual. We also use these educational goals to help buildings set goals to improve academic achievement as well. And you've heard from Mr. McDevitt last board meeting when we were at Leonard, and tonight Mrs. Nemi shared a little bit about how we use that time to intervene. And these screeners help inform those times as well. And then also required is presenting to the board today, in February, a check-in, and then again, our spring results in June. So for our seated goals, again, we're using the A reading and the A math. We administer that K-8 3 times a year, fall, winter, spring. And again, the purpose of that screener is it's taking a quick temperature check to say, are kids on track to reaching end of the year expectations? And if they're not, and we have like a percentage that we look at, we can use further diagnostics to help us determine why not. Is there something that we need to do in fluency, as an example, in reading? Or is it a comprehension issue? Is it a vocabulary issue? In math, are there standards in the previous year that maybe they haven't mastered that are preventing them from going along towards the end of the year expectations? And so for reading, we are setting a very similar goal that we had set actually in our first year of the pandemic, and that is to improve our score by 15 points from where we started to the end of the year. And in math, it's to improve by 6 points. Last year in June, you heard me get emotional, where I did cry because we did not meet those goals because of our interrupted year last year. These averages of growth, rate of growth, so I looked all the way back from 2016, and what has been our fall, winter, spring trajectory. And prior to the pandemic, this was something we were able to achieve. And so last year, I remember Chad asking, do you think you're gonna do this? And I said, I sure hope so, but I didn't wanna adjust the goals and do that to our kids. I wanted to be able to aim high. We didn't achieve it, but this year I'm hoping with continuous instruction, hopefully little to no interruptions in schooling, that we're able to achieve this goal. So this was definitely achievable pre-pandemic, and so that's why we set the goals where we did for seated. For OVA, oh, you know what, do you mind going back up? Sorry, Steve, because I forgot NWEA for, no, you're right, go back up, or down. It's the opposite, sorry. Okay, so for our OVA, for virtual, our virtual students, you'll see that their goals are kind of divided up by grade level for reading. They're using the Fontes and Pinnell. One of the big shifts that OVA has made, which is a really impressive shift, especially since their students are all over, is actually reading with every single student. So they have their staff now doing the Fontes and Pinnell, which is a reading inventory with every single student. And that has really changed the understanding for their student needs and has really informed their instructional practices. And we've been able to actually allocate supports as a result of that. And so based on where their baseline scores came in, I guess last month, DKK has a goal to improve at least the level. Their kids were pretty much on par to where they should be. First grade, they need to make a few more leaps than probably usual, again, probably a result of the learning loss. And then second through fifth looks like they're gonna be on par. So their goals there are increasing either 1 level for mid-year or 2 levels by the end of the year, and a whole 5 levels for first grade by the end of the year. And that seems like a lot, but in first grade, you are moving at a fast clip. It's not until you get to about late second, third, where those levels start to kind of widen up. So it's not uncommon for a student to move multiple levels in a year at that early grade level. And then for the secondary students, 6th through 8th grade, they will be using NWEA to measure their progress and their goal, and they have been able to meet these goals all of the years that we've been able to report this, and it is to be aligned with the national average. And so keeping on pace, and they have met that the last 2 years. And for math, they have made another huge shift and a really big undertaking. I don't know where, there's Jordan. Jordan is super brave and is ready to do hard work. They are doing the same in math. They are screening every student in person. And that is designed to be a little bit of a diagnostic to look at readiness skills and standards for this current grade level. So if I'm in 3rd grade, do I have everything I need to know before to be ready to take on this year's curriculum? And so they are now preparing interventions and working with students to help close those gaps. We use the same assessment as a screener in seated, but they're using it a little bit earlier on with their students. So you will see that by the end of the year, the goal changes a little bit. So the mid-year is still focused on readiness standards because we're still working on making sure that those lagging skills are hopefully closed. And then we want to work towards the current year standards. So by the end of the year, at least 70% of students will achieve or master readiness standards for their current grade level. I had a little bit of 70% I know could be perceived as being low, but I want to share with you at least 70. But this is the reason why, because 70% is low in my book. But here's the reason. Over 50% of the elementary students at OVA are brand new. Over 50%. 290 students this year are brand new to OVA.
Are they transfers?
Not necessarily from our buildings. They are in various hybrid programs. Majority of OVA elementary students are in a hybrid program. So they've either been homeschooled, they've potentially had interrupted schooling, and so we are working with some variables that are new to us, and so we need to meet them where they are and move them forward, but also keep that in mind. When we look at data over time, students who have been traditionally ours, whether seated or virtual, are able to maintain, and we see less of those gaps. So I just wanted to explain why 70%, because I'd really rather see that like 80, 85%, but it's important to be fair and to acknowledge really the road that OVA has ahead of them. With the middle school, same thing, NWEA, they've been able to meet those goals and being aligned with the national average. I think that's it for that. What questions might you have?
Heather?
No question, just more of a comment. I just really like how you guys are setting this up, because the whole situation of math always worries me because it's so pyramid. If you don't get the basics concepts, you're never gonna, you can't do the next one and the next one and the next one. And so I just would rather us be cautious and set our kids up for success. And OVA's always kind of looking to be the best of the best, I feel like, too. And I just think that that's great, because they have a lot of different variables that seated doesn't.
Yes, they do.
Not to take away from seated, but they just have a lot of different variables.
That's very real, yeah.
So that's just their real life every day, so.
And I have to say, I don't know if she's still here, Mrs. Nemi, there she is. She didn't say that she was also our district math coach, along with being an IB coordinator, and she is the one who brought Delta Math to us. So, thank you, Stephanie. And Win Time Idea. Yep. Yep.
Mary?
Thank you, Dan. Thank you for the presentation. A little hint on some of the seminars, classes, breakouts I did over the weekend when whenever we were talking about increasing student achievement, it always started with setting high expectations. So I think it's right for us to set realistic but high expectations because each of our students can do this. And I'm really impressed with the OVA connecting with every student on these because you're already telling us that it's beneficial. I mean, they're getting better tools to having better assessments. And gosh, I sure like being able to do some assessments, act on the results, and then do the assessments again as opposed to taking a test in the spring and finding out next fall what our test scores are. So I'm glad to hear this is all working together. This is great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Aaron?
I just want to thank you for going into some of the detail, because when I first looked at the presentation, 15 feels like a big jump, being a new board member and not knowing that we could achieve that. You know, sometimes the number is relative to the process, so thank you.
You're welcome. And I did write down last year, we had set it at 15 also. We had it at 12.7, so just shy with the interruptions, and we had set it at 6 for math, and we had a 5.3 growth, so very close, but yeah, I'm hoping that we will meet or exceed that by the end of the year.
Colleen? No. I will say, I think if you turn on any national news, you turn on that covers education, that is the big concern is throughout the pandemic, what is the educational loss that students have had to overcome, districts have had to overcome. So this is not a unique to Oxford situation. You can make the argument that we've had more to overcome. But I agree with Mary, I agree with your assessment. Let's challenge them, because if you don't hold the bar high, yeah, it's easy to just, let's just lower the bar and let everybody hit it, and then boy, we look good, right? It's not the goal, because 1 year of the numbers looking good does not correlate to a student taking a jump year after year after year. And that's what we need to focus on. Let's not settle for, it's okay. Let's push and keep pushing and keep pushing. So I agree. Keep the bar as high as we can and still make it realistic. So very good. Thank you, Anita. Anybody else? No? Yes, Aaron.
Do you feel like you have the resources to get to 15 in the year, given the interruption and challenges in the environment?
I do. I think that we are continuing to assess that. Just yesterday when we got our at-risk allocation in our first state aid, I looked at that and thought about where we might, based on where our data came in, look to support additionally. So luckily we're in the position to be able to do that, but I do feel like we have what we need. It has been a mind shift also in how we utilize our resources, because you have to look at it from a systematic approach, like the systems approach, and I think sometimes it's hard for teachers. They only see like their class, their students, and you're so emotionally invested. So it's been trying to shift a little bit to what does a system look like? What's the health of the grade level? What's the health of the school? And then overall, how does the data look? So as a district, we're tracking like that group, that kindergarten group that was interrupted in the spring is the group I watch like all the way through. And we are seeing trends of how we might have to shift our supports to help them.
One last thing that I will say that this cannot, and I'm glad because I've had a couple conversations with Ken. We're still very, very focused on the social and emotional aspect of our students all the way through, 1st through 12. This is not, we're not foregoing that, so this makes this challenge even more difficult, but I'm confident, you know, that we have a great team in place And if you do find that you need more resources, as Aaron pointed towards, please let Ken know. I think we have some money sitting there that we'd be glad to spend.
And I would agree with what Mary said. Essentially, social emotional health and our well-being is a prerequisite to learning. So feeling comfortable in our learning environment, feeling like I have the skills to be able to regulate and be able to learn. I think that's important. I know that when we rolled out the recovery plan, there was a little bit of, but what about the academics? When you think about Maslow's hierarchy, basic needs have to be met first in order for kids to learn. And so that plan is not a disregard to the academics. The academics is what we know how to do, right? But it's a recognition to what has to be reset, essentially, and making sure our kids are in a good place to be able to learn and to be able to take on the rigor. So I appreciate you saying that.
Okay. Thank you, Anita and Steve.
I'm going to stay up here because the next thing might be mine too.
I know, but
okay.
I have to follow the numbers, Anita.
Okay.
So next, we are going to have you give us a little bit of an overview on the elementary classroom libraries. Is that correct?
Yep. So 2 weeks ago, was it 2 weeks ago? Yeah. 2 weeks ago, I presented essentially quotes and reading a catalog for book orders to enhance our classroom libraries. I shared with you that the goal of this purchase is to essentially replace and replenish worn books from purchases we made all the way back in 2015-16. We sought out teacher input, what range or text reading levels that they need in their libraries. So this is one way that we're trying to get at these academic goals. So if we have students who need access to higher level text or lower level text, this is going to help with that as well. Adding more high interest. So as I mentioned, you'll see like there's a shelf in here for weather. There's a shelf in here for historical fiction. Those are the high interests for those specific grade levels. So supporting those units of study. And one thing, and I highlighted in orange because I can't believe I forgot to say this because this is so important. These purchases made back in 2015-16 and these additions are really also about leveling the playing field and the kids' access to books. So prior to districts making purchases like this, and I can tell you it came from a district that did not invest in these types of books in classrooms, you basically had books available based on what the teacher went out and got on their own, or what points they earned from Scholastic that they can like put more on the shelves. Right, and so this is a way to say, if you're a teacher does this or not, you're gonna all have access to the same books, and this is like a very near and dear important point that I was like, oh my God, you forgot to say that. So I just wanted to make sure that you also understood that this is also making sure that no matter what school you go to, or which teacher you have access to the same high quality books and volume of books. So that's what this purchase is about. I was also asked to maybe share a little bit about how we selected the books or some of the things that we consider when purchasing books. So I'll say that criteria is dependent on the purpose. So the criteria we use for these purchases might be different from a criteria used at the middle school or high school that is for a book club or a discussion. These essentially are going on a shelf primarily for students to be able to use and shop from, like they have shopping days that they might fill their book bags. So our criteria that we really looked at is the alignment to the curriculum. These in particular are shelves made to complement our curriculum. They're by the same creators and writers. The other criteria we look at is the alignment to our state standards. So do these books help us achieve the comprehension? As an example, in 3rd grade, we do theories about characters. So there is a shelf in here that supports strong characters in books. So do we have books on our shelves that when we're using or learning this unit of study, our students can shop for a book that has a strong character, who changes over time. You know, those are the types of things that what we're looking at. The other thing we considered is accessibility for kids. So do they have books that are at their readability level? And readability considers complexity. So as an example, does it have one character? That's simpler. Does it have 4 characters that I'm keeping track of and how they intertwine? And then the actual reading level. So am I able to read this book independently on my own without teacher support, or do I need teacher support? So those are the criteria that we considered when putting this order together.
Excellent. Okay, and there is a motion on the table. Would anybody like to read that? Please, Heather.
Okay. Move to approve to purchase classroom libraries for DK through 5th grade elementary students from Hyman for the total not to exceed amount of $115,025.40.
Is there support?
All of us.
Colleen, support. Any discussion?
Did you have another discussion point?
Am I allowed to discuss or say something else?
Sure.
Sure.
I
Okay,
would like to
I
know what
just-
else you think, Ms.
Yes.
I just wanted to add why the not to exceed amount, why it says not to exceed amount. Yeah, that's the exact amount that you got in the quotes that we got, but we were told the vendor's gonna give us discounted shipping, so I think it's gonna be less than that. But I won't know that till we actually put the order through.
Right.
Okay,
So that's why it says it that way.
okay, very good. So discussion there, discussion here.
Thank you again for, let's talk about reading and books in classrooms, and especially after the other presentation, how it just kind of came together for me even more. Just the opportunity for students to have these books in their classrooms at multiple levels at those younger grades, because I know that when I was reading everything when I was younger, as soon as I started exploring, you know, new worlds through books, it was all just great, and it's really great that they don't have to take the time, go to another room. I mean, just have the opportunities right there. And now I want to go read a book again. So thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's great that it's, like you said, the same in every school. I think as we strive for equity in education across the state, across the country, we can't advocate for that if we don't have equity in our own district. And so I'm very grateful, I'm very proud of the fact that we are doing that and that we have a staff that thinks that way. Because as 8, 9, 10, 12, or 8, 6, 7, 8-year-old and DK through 5th grade, you don't get to pick where you live. And they shouldn't be at a disadvantage because they live in one area as opposed to another. All of our students are important to us, and we have to recognize that. And so I'm very proud of that fact, and like I said, I'm glad that you all understand that as well, so thank you. So with that, a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Mr. Barna, Business and Maintenance.
Just can't stay away. So good evening again, and what you have in front of you is annually we have our summer tax resolution. The district collects 80% of our taxes annually in the summertime, and so this is something that's legally required by December 31st each year. So that is what you have in front of you, and I will ask you to contemplate this, obviously, and at the next board meeting, hopefully approve.
Okay. It'll be at the next board meeting?
Yeah, yes.
For approval?
For
All right.
approval, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If anybody, I think you might be familiar with this, because I think you were still on the board when that process happened, because it switched.
Correct, I remember.
It was, you collect half in the summer tax and then half in the winter tax. We opted, because we have such a higher debt load, we want to get that money sooner, because we don't collect state money in the summertime. This helps us create some of that, so. You're gonna correct me, aren't you?
I'm going to correct you a little bit.
It'll be the first time tonight, Sam.
We do collect state money in the summertime, but we do not collect state aid in the month of September.
Okay,
And so we have 11 equal, almost equal payments throughout the year, state aid, that we receive. The only month, again, is September. But you are absolutely correct, this, keeping that stable, obviously, millage each year helps us pay on our debt, and it also, having the summer tax collection due to timing allows us not to have to borrow from the school bond loan fund in the November timeframe. So that's what it helps. So you're correct.
I was close, but thank you very much for the clarity. Okay, human resources, item number 8. There is nothing there, so we have nothing. I do want to ask, I'll discuss that later. It's not on the, so I don't want to talk about it. Move on, as they say. Item number 9, safety and school operations. There's a request for some technology. We've had that presented last board meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so there's a recommendation for action. I don't believe that anything's changed, as I saw in my packet, so does anybody want to make that motion? Mary?
Move to approve to purchase technology materials for staff desktops from Intercomp TSG for the total amount of $28,728.70.
Is there support? Support Aaron. Any discussion? I have a question. If we had, I think it came up at last meeting, but I just need to ask. We're pretty confident we're going to be able to get those in time?
Yes.
When we need them?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. There's another, item B under safety and school operations, Mr. Santala. Technology request for OVA. You want to tell us all about it?
How you doing? For those of you who don't know me, I'm Matt Sanala, one of the assistant principals at Oxford Virtual Academy and serve as tech director there. We found out from DRC Insight, which is what the software that sends our M-STEP testing to us, that some of the Chromebooks that we have will no longer be supported. In September, Chrome updated to a 102 version of Chrome OS, and DRC Insight will only support that 102. Some of the Chromebooks that we have are HP G4s, which are 14 inches. They stopped receiving updates in September of 21, and so we no longer can use those for state testing. We did a bunch of calculations and figured out that our largest testing group, which is going to be our 3rd and our 4th graders, is going to be 287 students testing at one time for M-STEP testing. And based on our current fleet at locations, these G4s that are not going to be working for us for testing, and our increased enrollment has already been mentioned, we're going to need 165 Chromebooks, G7s. We're going to get the same thing that the district is getting for all of the other schools, which also receive updates all the way up till 2029. So they will be able to have a longevity for us. So that's what we're requesting the funds for.
Okay, I'm just doing some quick math here. Okay, we have a motion. Does anybody want to read that? Aaron?
I move to approve the purchase of the additional Chromebooks for OVA from Incomp TSG for the total amount of $66,287.30.
Support? Support Colleen. Any discussion? Mary?
Thank you. And where is this coming out of the budget?
OVA has funds that are already in their budget that they will be reallocating. to fund this.
And will we be able to use these more than just for the testing? But the primary purpose is that they can support the state testing because that's a requirement.
Yep, so they can support the state testing. We'll end up bringing these back into our fleet. As you know, we purchase computers every year.
Yeah.
And then we will be making sure that our stock is high enough in May and coming back to the board for the request for the next year.
Now, I'm surprised to hear who's guaranteeing updates to 2029. I mean, I think that's great, but I haven't. Is that a new thing that
Google Chrome? I can send Ken a list.
Okay.
There's a website on the Chrome website that says what model and when it will receive updates till.
Has that always been there and I've just never looked? Or is that a new thing?
I actually had to look myself, so
Okay.
it makes sense because I had to look myself, and each model is a little bit different. We had some HP G4s that were 14 inches. They were September of 2021, but these ones will be till 29, and I got that from the website, the HP website, and from Chrome's website as well.
That's really great. That is really great to know because it's always been a guessing game. Let's see how long will this last. Thank you.
Okay, that breaks down to $401.74 per unit. That's pretty good. I mean, that's real good.
And
especially considering what you're talking about, the longevity.
And part of the reason why we're coming to the board today is because it is part of the REMC bid price. Currently, each unit is $312, but come October 29th, in a few days, it goes up to $355, which would cost the district another $77,095.
Okay. The rest of it's, you know.
The rest would be part of the Google console fee, care pack, and a case that goes on the device.
Correct. Yep, very good. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Matt. Okay. Item 10, unscheduled audience participation. Individuals are welcome to speak for 3 minutes during the unscheduled public participation portion of the agenda. All statements should be directed to the presiding officer. No person may address or question board members or the superintendent individually. In order to speak to the board, individuals fill out the cards. We kind of went over that earlier. Please include your address, telephone number. In case we need to get a hold of you, Ken will be responsible for getting a hold of you per your request. So let's give it a couple of minutes here, or this is it? Okay. Why don't we take a 5-minute break and we will do that. continue with our unscheduled audience participation portion of the meeting. We have a few in here, so we're going to try to go through them. Just to kind of reiterate, we typically have a light here. It'll shine at the 2 minute and 30 seconds. We don't have that tonight. Mary's going to put up her hand. Once we get to 3 minutes, she'll put up her hand again. I'm going to let you finish your thought, but not create a new one and other things. So just when you see your hand go up for the second time, please, out of what everybody's got going on here, try to stay within, wrap that thought up within 30 seconds or so. That would be great. Okay, Mark Gillum.
Thank you for allowing me to speak again and restoring the rights of the parents and the guardians to use this microphone like we all should. I think that was a really smart move to do that. It's been several months since I've been able to speak here. First of all, I just want to say how proud I am of all the students who keep showing up and playing hurt. They're a good example to all of us, and I just think they're amazing. Thank you to all the teachers that are working with our children. You guys are really just doing a great job. And also thank you to the Oakland County Sheriff's Department who stopped the shooting on November 30th with 18 rounds of ammunition still with the attacker. So thank you to all of them and for their response. I'm going to go back to kind of where I was heading many months ago. I'm referencing case number 222 CV 11360, and basically there were 3 teachers who reported Ethan to administration. It went to Mr. Throne, it went to Mr. Wolf, and then it went to the 2 counselors, Jack and Hopkins. And if you want to read the lawsuit for yourself, based on their own testimony, they failed to involve CPS and the law enforcement. They broke the law, it was clear. I just want to know, why are they still working for our district? So, we've had some resignations from the board. I'd like to commend everybody who was on the board at the time of this tragedy for resigning, and we have some more that'll be leaving on November 8th. And I want to welcome you both and thank you for stepping up, and we need you. And I hope you get some really good teammates to work with you as we resolve these issues. But you talk about trust, but you want us to accept the people who were in charge and made the decisions to return this individual back to the classroom after he had been told 3 times from teachers all issues relating to gun violence, and still they're employed by this district. That makes me confident that I cannot trust this board until every one of you have been removed. So I hope you take those actions quickly. I don't understand that. When children die, you don't get to keep your job. You're all fired. The team of 8 is fired, and the individuals who allowed that to happen are also fired.
Okay. Danielle, there you are. Okay.
Good evening. I'm here again, another board meeting, and no safety update. So allow me. Yesterday, the shooter pled guilty for murder, attempted murder, and terrorism. A 16-year-old boy took responsibility for his actions 11 months later. Let me repeat, a 16-year-old boy took responsibility for his actions, and he will be held accountable for the death of Justin, Hannah, Tate, and Madison. He will be held accountable for attempting to murder many others and terrorizing 1,800 students. 3 parties are responsible for what happened on the 30th: the shooter, his parents, and the school district. Each one of you sitting here now knows the truth, the school district's role in this tragedy, was the failure to implement threat assessment procedures. Staff was not trained, and on those days, we did not act upon it. We teach our kids to take responsibility for our actions, hold people accountable, and you have yet to do that. You sit in silence, and you all know very well, even the two new board members now know, there was a failure. When will you take accountability? When will you hold the 5 people accountable for their lack of action? When? I'm going to keep coming up here and asking because this is what the community needs to move on and heal. I send my daughter to school under this guise of safety, but I have no reason to believe that we have mitigated any concerns with threat assessment procedures or training. And you guys sit in silence. We need you to speak. We need you to talk about it. Talk about threat assessment procedures in education as much as you talk about Chromebooks, please. You have an opportunity to make an impact and make a change. Either resign and then go do something, help us do something so we can move forward. You can be an example for the county, for the state, for the nation. You have an opportunity.
Olivia.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm quite nervous, so I'll be talking really fast, and I'll also be trying my best not to cry. My name is Olivia Upham. The very first day I ever attended school in my life was at Daniel Oxford Elementary. I loved school in Oxford every day, and I graduated from Oxford High School, and I won the Oxford Cup in 2017. Last year I taught 6th grade at Oxford Middle School, where I had the kindest and brightest students in the whole world. They're a big part of my reason for coming here tonight. But perhaps most importantly, I'm the older sister of Keegan, who is a senior at Oxford High School this year. Well, I've been to almost every board meeting. It's taken me almost a year to come up here and to address you, and I think that comes from a sincere and forever sense of being overwhelmed and shocked and disappointed. Oxford educators were begging you in every way that we know how this past year for you to listen. For you to make difficult choices even when it's inconvenient for you. And while your ignorance is hurtful, it is also dangerous. I ask each of you sitting up here tonight if you think it speaks volumes that 2 of your own, having gained insight, resigned and are now sharing with the media that the community cannot heal without answers. I know that some of you get it, I really do. But if others of you knew our reality day in and day out as teachers or as families to those that were present on November 30th, you would be horrified. But I don't know if you're listening. I want to very quickly share with you a poem that's by Kathy Fish. It's titled Collective Nouns for Humans in the Wild. A group of grandmothers is a tapestry. A group of toddlers is a jubilance. See also a bewailing. A group of librarians is an enlightenment. A group of visual artists is a bioluminescence. A group of musicians is a band. A resplendence of poets, a beacon of scientists, a raft of social workers. A group of first responders is a valiance. A group of peaceful protesters is a dream. A group of special education teachers is a transcendence. Humans in the wild, gathered and feeling good, previously in exhilaration, now a target. A target of concertgoers, a target of moviegoers, a target of dancers. A group of school children is a target. The school board may have earned its own collective noun. Perhaps the school board is a coward. Perhaps the school board is a wall. Perhaps the school board is too absent to even name. I hope that when the dust settles, or when it begins to settle on the tragic chapter of Oxford's history, and for many of us, the dust will never settle. But I do hope that one day that we can say a school board is a reckoning. I think that's about my time, so thank you.
Brian Cooper. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't intend on speaking tonight, however, I just wanted to, I feel that the only way that we can continue to progress and work toward healing is to speak our emotions when I hear something that might be what I find upsetting. I listened to the presentation tonight about our academic desires and our want to be better and hit certain numbers. And I just want to make it clear that I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, but I think I spoke a long time ago at a meeting about the expectations after a school shooting. Now, as a parent, I'm just going to let you know what I heard. Because it might not be accurate, it might not be what was intended. We talked about COVID, and then we used the word interruption. And that was tough to hear as a parent. I don't think you intended to say that, but that's how it's perceived. We saw that more than an interruption. So the expectation is we're already struggling to recover from COVID, and then we have a school shooting. It wasn't an interruption, it was a school shooting that took lives of our students, causes disruption for our family, and change the lives of a lot of our students moving forward. So I think we have to be realistic in our expectations to be academically equal to those around us. I don't think it's a fair expectation to think that we can do that in 1 year. It was hard to hear that. And then you hear at the end, you know, we throw in the word SEL, but I think SEL needs to become a culture. The concept of healing for these children, I think people need to speak up and be heard, and it needs to be encouraged. I'm sorry that I missed the last listen and learn. I had to work late, but I want to continue to let you know what I hear. And it's the same thing when I receive an email about a student making a threat toward Jewish people. While I know that might not be directed at our school, this is our community. We assume that that's a student, and I'm a Jewish person, and my kids are Jewish. So when it said it didn't directly impact our school, it does impact our school because some of our students are Jewish. So when we drive by the Legacy Center and my kid feels uncomfortable, I just want us to recognize how our words are perceived when we put them out there. And it's hard to recognize that in general because you're probably not thinking that you're trying to be hurtful in your words. But I'm just letting you know that we're sensitive to this as adults, and I can assure you that our children are as well.
Renee Upham.
Good evening. My name's Renee Upham. As an employee here, I'm hoping I have a little bit of grace. If I go over, I'll do my best to be brief. I haven't attended board meetings recently. I did not find them helpful most of last year. In fact, to be perfectly honest, board meetings last year left me speechless and overwhelmed. I'm not sure who has guided the district post November 30th in matters of relationships and board meeting conduct, but it has been in many respects a disappointment. One day, I truly believe someone will make a documentary of the tragedy that occurred here, and I'm afraid history will not look kindly on events that occurred in its aftermath. While I understand the task at hand is monumental and there is no playbook for how to do this, I feel some days the district has become a machine without knowledge or empathy. In one board meeting, beloved high school students were here pleading for understanding, while grief-stricken parents were here looking for answers, only to be turned away. I've watched Buckner, Craig Schilling, Megan Gregory, other family members forced to sit through 3-hour meetings, which included closed-door sessions while you met with lawyers, all so they could have a few lousy moments just to say something to you and not get a response. I've heard baffling comments and lighthearted jokes about TV shows. Often it seems like no one here can read the room. I have 3 things I'd like you to consider. First, having trust or giving the district the benefit of the doubt is difficult for some of us. That is the problem with not being transparent and taking ownership over things in the past. This isn't rocket science. You had my child under your care. While he was under your care, he was terrorized. He lost classmates, including a friend. And he could have lost his life. Almost an entire year later, no one has told me how this was allowed to happen. You expect parents to accept your premise that you can lead us going forward, yet you told us nothing about the mistakes in the past. We ask and we expect kids every day to take ownership. It is ownership and it is making amends that create the foundation that's needed to move forward. Second, in times of crisis, leaders are forged. Leaders choose a side. Early on, lines were drawn, sides were picked. Ask yourselves, did you stand with the lawyers or did you stand with the kids? Oxford right now has a platform. How are you using that platform? We have a national audience right now. How are we accessing it? Who from here or who from the superintendent of Michigan's office is talking on a national stage about the sorry state of public education right now? About massive mental health needs, lack of facilities to help kids in crisis, common sense gun laws, and staffing shortages. You can blame anything you want for that day, but bottom line, many school districts, including ours obviously, do not have what is necessary to be a stopgap measure against terrible parenting and kids in crisis. That conversation is a priority. And finally, I want to address this idea of moving on with you and with the community. I've been hearing this phrase pop up lately about moving on, and I find it tiresome. Rest assured, kids in Oxford are moving on. They are getting good grades. They are playing soccer, lacrosse, and football. They're playing volleyball. They're diving. They're in marching band. They're in theater. They're doing homework and they're showing up. They are seeing Halloween movies with friends and they're playing Monopoly with their siblings. Like my own child, they show grit and resilience every day. However, this does not mean that they are not also missing friends they have lost or struggling when they're in a large crowd or searching for answers. This does not mean that some of them haven't changed their future college plans to use the bathrooms without fear daily. This does not mean that they haven't seen one or two of their teachers cry in that building as recently as last week. This does not mean they don't want and deserve answers.
Okay, we've gotten well past, so you got another 10 seconds, please.
She has as much time as she wants.
10 seconds, please.
How dare anyone in this community imply that anyone is not moving on because they are seeking the truth or because they are grieving? OHS students are kids who were let down in massive ways, but rest assured they are moving on, and one day they will fix the problems that they had no part in creating.
Okay. Tom Donnelly.
President D'Alessandro, thank you for 3 minutes. Number one, I saw a post today that you're going to do a SABRE assessment this year for the high school. I would commend you and ask you to first, because I caught the word again, which means we did it last year. We piloted it. I would ask you and I would charge you to find out what we did with that pilot before we launch it to all 4 grades. Did we finish the pilot? Did we observe the results? Did we do anything? Second thing I'd like to talk to you about is cost. A question that I have pondered now for months is that there is certainly a dollar cost in lawsuits. I still don't have an adequate answer to a question that I would hope you could find. If something was wrong, if we did something wrong as a district on that day, my question is, do I pay more in penalties because I was honest and I was forthright and I did an assessment and I looked at myself and I said, hey, I screwed up? Do I pay less if it's found out later that I had the information for over a year and it had to be found out? It's either the cost. Ethan Crumley pleads guilty, thank goodness. We don't have to go through the pain of a trial and go through the nightmare of what happened that day. But all that did was mitigate more pain. It hasn't healed the community. What I encourage you to see is at one point, all the cost on the outside will outweigh any cost on the inside, monetarily. There are certain things you just can't get back. Trust, integrity. Anger. I encourage you to look at that SABRE assessment, and I encourage you to figuratively ask, do I really pay more if I do it this way versus this way? Then why wouldn't I do it this way so I heal my community? Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Megan Gregory. Okay. Yeah, she filled it up. Okay. Right, so that is that.
The silence was too much for her, that's why she left.
Okay. All right. No. Okay, scheduled activities. There's a list of them there. Important election days, November 8th. We have a Board of Education meeting on November 15th. No school through November 23rd through 25th. And then we have another Board of Education meeting on the 13th. And then another one on January 11th. Clarification, I have none. Final board comments. Colleen, any final board comments?
None that I
Okay.
can think of.
Anybody? Okay. Under other, I was contacted by a couple of different board members, and they had requested a conversation about forming board committees. I would like to have you give me your list of what types of board committees that you would like to see. We'll get together with Ken to see what fits in. MASB, there's a lot of different nuances as to what committees. There's quite a big list of committees that other districts have. We'll kind of put those all together and see where the right places for those would be. So I don't know if you want to talk about them now or you just want to give them to us. However you want to do it, it's completely up to you. Erin, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and just start. So, being 5 days old and being on the committee, and thank you so much, and to the community as well for inviting me to be part of this opportunity. One of the things I would like to implement is a list of subcommittees that we look at. Subcommittees allow for the board and other stakeholders to engage in detailed work. And some of those committees, and I will send the list to you and Ken, would be safety, policy, finance, and communication that tie in with our strategic plan and our recovery plan.
Okay. Anybody else? Have any committees they want to bring forward now for us to think about?
Well, I will.
Yes.
I will go ahead and add to what Erin was saying. I mean, I know that there are some, an important piece for me has been in finance in where we are going with the, with the money that we have now, the short-term money, and being able to measure things as we go along. So I think there's a lot of opportunities for those who are interested to be a part of digging deeper into that information and supporting, which also supports administration. I'm not well prepared to speak on a lot of it, so I'd like to look through some things and share them with you.
We will
But I think
revisit
we're on the
it.
right track. I know Heather has brought this up before, and it's taken me a
Yep.
little while to figure out how it all can fit together.
And we'll bring this up again. This is kind of the starting point as we move forward. Heather?
Yeah, so this has been something that I've been trying to get going for many, many months, sent many emails and asked for better communication, asked for committees to be made for that reason, to help bridge communication back to the board. So, as we've gone over it before, this is our only opportunity to collectively talk. So having sometimes committees do some of the legwork and report back can be very beneficial to school districts, which is why I've been trying to get this going for several months. I reached out to MASB. I even asked them in person when they were here for a training. They said, yes, most districts have them. I checked several districts around us, board members from other districts around us. They all have committees. So we have a policy committee, and I've recently been on the safety committee about the last year or so. But curriculum is a big one that's in multiple districts, as well as finance. Some of the smaller districts have development committees that do bond disbursement and other things like that, because they might not have a Sam Barna, they might not have a business development person on their cabinet. So, depending upon what their needs are, they can go off into some other directions. Some do even as much as HR or hiring, not that they necessarily sit in on interviews, but I think they just oversee the creating of positions and what positions need to be filled, and kind of not managing the process from an HR perspective, but just from what the hiring needs are, the recruiting needs are, things like that. So lots of opportunity for us to help bridge communication, I think, going forward.
Okay. Any clarification, Mr. Weaver?
Yeah, just wanted to get some input from the board. We did hire recently Jim Vernier, who's actually here tonight. We sent out a little bit about his background in that and so forth. Former Oak Park police officer, also did some building assessments for SEC as well. We're happy to have him on. He was also one of the big points the hiring committee, as they were going through the process, looked at, was his approach seemed to be really collaborative, but yet focused on maintaining the safety. But really the big selling point was experience in schools, coming with that knowledge, background, did some work as an SRO as well as liaisons in other school districts. 3 of them, I think, at one time was kind of working with. So we're really happy with that. But what we're looking at doing is trying to figure out how important. So we're trying to figure out if we want to purchase a car for him and put a wrap around the car so it's identified as security, to help visibility throughout the district and so forth. Right now we're paying a stipend for him to use his car to go from building to building. So it really comes down to, and we're having problems with his own insurance. Hopefully I'm not giving away too much of your personal business, but it comes down to, as soon as we put anything identifiable on the car, they will not insure. So if we want to put anything on there, I mean, he's happy to continue driving from building to building and do that responsibility. But if we want anything that shows on the car, at that point we have to purchase the car to be able to do that. And so just looking for some feedback from the board. Over the life, probably is just be using the car to drive around the school district. He'd bring his own car and then drive this car, and then at the end of the day go home in his own car. So the life of the car would probably be at least 10 years if it's well maintained in that. So when you look at the cost of paying for the stipend and added sixes, as far as that goes, so it's really about the visibility, how important that is to the board. And so just looking for some input on that. You don't have to necessarily give it tonight. You can email me, and then we'll use that for the decision as to moving forward.
I would like to have some clarification on, I'm kind of torn, because I'd like to know what best practices are in those case scenarios. Number one, do you say, I'm going to put a vehicle that's going to be very identifiable so that it gives it a safety security feeling, or is best practice in this world that we are in right now, that this country is in, do you say we don't wrap a vehicle, we don't make it known where this particular security person is located? That's the difficult question.
Yeah.
I know we make everybody feel better by doing it, or we make a majority of people feel better. But then there's the other side of it, and that's kind of one of the some of the research that we're going to have to do before we get to that point. So, with that in mind, I would like to kind of have that discussion, maybe bring that bit of information up when we can.
All right.
Okay?
And we'll do the research. Yep, just looking to kind of put that out there for you to give input on and to figure out how we want to approach.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. And with that, it is meeting adjourned at 8:45.